The village of Darbnik, which is some 15 kilometers to the southwest of Yerevan, is home to about 2,000 ethnic Armenian families who fled the war and subsequent insurgency in Iraq. Varujan made a decision overnight to leave his spacious house and garden in Baghdad and go to Yerevan.
Yes, he wanted to
I was discharged from hospital. We could no longer stay there. I heard threats from everywhere. They would come and knock on your door and warn, if you go back to work, we will cut your throat. You can't escape it. That's what it was.
Varujan, who served in Iraqi police in a rank of a mayor, says Mujahideen guerrillas had inflicted some serious injuries on him. He says before Armenia sent its peacekeepers to Iraq, Iraqis had treated Armenians quite well, but after that Varujan's memories of Iraq are more like scenes from horror movies.
The Muslim insurgents would break into people's homes and slaughter them, would abduct their women and hold them for ransom. If they had your daughter, they would demand a ransom of $100,000 so that you could get her alive. Otherwise, they threatened they would send your daughter dead in a plastic bag. They liked Armenians, but when Armenia sent troops to Iraq, the radical Muslims freaked out and began burning grass and wheat indiscriminately. Saddam Hussein wasn't a bad person. When the Pope spoke out for the evacuation Christians, including Armenian Christians, Saddam said he wasn't that crazy to give up the flowers and keep the thorns.
Varujan and his wife Elisa say it is still not safe in Iraq. Human lives have become the main source of income for many in this troubled Middle Eastern country.
If you managed to get to the border, you still could easily be caught. The agent at the border would call them and they would come after you. They would take a woman away on a car and call her family to demand a ransom, say $50,000. To let her go, but they would most certainly kill you if you were a man. I was in law enforcement, but I was afraid to say that, because the Muslims would then hold you prisoner and put the video on the internet before they cut your head off. That's Iraq.
Varujan and Alisa now live in a small, narrow room provided by the Armenian government. In Armenia they had a son, but they say they don't plan on having another child here, as they neither have a place where to live or can earn their living, like they did in Iraq, where ethnic Armenians rarely lived in poverty.
Here 30 people work to maintain just one person, while there in Iraq, one working person would be enough to maintain 30. Here I live like in prison.
Varujan's salary is low and he has to work long hours. He spends a lot of what he earns to cover his commuting expenses.
You leave at 7 o'clock in the morning and come back at 9 in the evening. And all you get is just 2,000 drams, about $5 a day.
I fear for what may happen to him if he goes back to Iraq.
Iraqi Armenians find it difficult to get a job in Armenia. They say it is hard to get from Darbnik to capital Yerevan, while there is no work to do in the village.
What should we do? We need to shift for ourselves. We sold our homes and property at a fraction of their price only to get here, to get our men out of trouble. But there is no work to do here. It is very difficult here. It isn't what we used to have there. The situation there was frightening, but you did have a means of livelihood. You've got no means of livelihood here. True, you do have the security, some conveniences, but there is no job. That is the toughest part.
Armenuhi Zakarian came to Armenia in 1999 when, she says, it already wasn't peaceful in Iraq. She lives off a state pension and a disability allowance. She says life in Iraq was better, but still acknowledges that home is best for Armenians. True, it was secluded, but we did have a very good standard of life there. At least we wouldn't starve, but if you starve here, no one will ever care to inquire about you. Still, I would suggest that instead of going abroad and spending all their hard-earned money to settle down in Holland or elsewhere, Armenians should try and get a life in Armenia.